Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kaja Mae, and welcome to Game Over. I'm your host, Kaja Mae. I said that already. Vancouver just won against the Seattle Kraken. We've heard that before, um, a few times, but we almost didn't win, and that was certainly an interesting choice tonight. I am joined with Chanel, who's amazing. Love Chanel, one of my favorite Twitter mutuals. But first I just have to get a little message out to you. Think you know what way it's gonna go? Make your bets with Sports Interaction. Whether it's hockey, football, or basketball, Sports Interaction has you covered. Bet pregame, live in play, or on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Join now and see all sports betting has to offer. Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus, please play responsibly. All right. Now that is done, hello! We have won. So, yes, little recap of the Canucks game that was almost our first regulation loss. First loss to the Kraken. First loss to the Kraken in, franchise history, basically, but then it wasn't, so we are still undefeated against the Kraken. Unfortunately, in your case, Chanel, I guess. Yeah, so it looked like it was going to be a loss for a minute. What were your thoughts on how the Kraken came off kind of with the attack and getting the initial lead in the beginning?
They always find a way to surprise me, especially this season, and I think this was a perfect game to show someone if they've never watched the Kraken play before, because although we didn't make the comeback per se after just a wild couple of plays and periods, it was quite surprising. I didn't expect it to go to a shootout at all, nor maybe overtime. But at the end, I was like, there's just no way we're getting out of this one. We just seem to, time and energy seem to catch up with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that jersey throw on the ice from your guys' perspective might have been the reason for the will to win. So.
Yeah. Which jersey throw? There's been a few.
The most recent one.
Most recent. Yeah, there were a few people saying, "Oh no, it's going to be another 5-1 Canucks at home loss," which we've had 5 of, I believe, now this season. Yeah, it was the Kraken are certainly an exciting team to watch, especially this season. And, we always love having good teams in our divisions. It's just so great to have, like, a team that's, wonderful. The team that's, leading the standings, they're kind of high, they're higher than us, which is kind of easy to do. But, yeah, like you said, I didn't expect it to go to overtime. I was, like, waiting for the, Kraken empty net, and I was like, Kraken won 6-4. I was accepting a loss at that moment. But then, the Kraken and the Canucks are surprising. The Canucks were surprising in a worse way this year, but they were certainly surprising. Yeah. After that first goal, it was kind of a little scary at the McCann goal where he scored from the Canucks blue line, and I was a little scared because I was like, that just reminds me of that one goal. I think it was Rasmus Anderson last year in the Battle of Alberta playoffs against Mike Smith, except it was all really on the other side of the ice, but still, like what are you doing? He overcommitted to one side, couldn't get back on the other side. And I've seen, like, Martin, he also did this later in a goal where he just kind of leaves his net a lot. And, or he leaves his net, he's out of the crease a lot. He likes to skirt around the blue paint. I don't think he understands he can just stay in there the entire game. Like, that's his job. That's what he gets paid for. Yeah, and then Lane Peterson. Also, I'm pretty sure they were trying to kill, like, announcers and, like, people who recap the game because they put Pedersen and Peterson on the same line. I think John Shorthouse made a comment about that during the stream, or somebody did in the pre-game show, but yeah, that's it's interesting. I saw him play in Abbotsford a few weeks ago, and he's been great for the Abbotsford Canucks since we got him from Carolina. In the Bear trade. Also about the Bear trade, Ethan Bear was scratched tonight. Not sure if that's the best situation. It's not the best situation. Considering Stillman, I'm pretty sure he, like, just fell at one point. It's just why. Or he iced the puck when we needed a change. That was my main thing. Oh, okay. Erica has joined us as well. All right. Going to have a couple technical difficulties. Somebody in the chat just said EP40's flu game. Yeah, that's...
On the Seattle Times delivers Creek Sports.
Hey, sorry, doing my post game stuff.
No worries.
All right, hold on. Let me turn my light on here.
Okay.
Tonight, here's the second. It's 10th on the season. And a terrific one so far with the Kraken.
All right.
Yeah, more Kraken post game coming your way.
Stand-up comedians Angela Johnson Reyes presents Who Do I Think I Am tour.
I don't know anyway.
Second.
And people are like, hurry, let's come on this phone first so we can call her.
All right, hold on. Let me turn off Root Sport.
Yes. Live show. Yes.
Yeah. All right. And then my door so I'm not interrupted. Okay. And now I'm ready. Ish.
Ready. All right. Hello.
Hey, sorry to hold you. I was have to do like a post-game hit for my podcast. So
All good. Understandable.
all right.
Sorry, I'm just adjusting everyone so everyone's in the shot.
That always helps.
That would, yep, always. It's always great to have people you can see when you're doing a show.
Yeah.
No, I have had a lot of technical difficulties as of recent. I was streaming the other day and my headset cut out midstream. So.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. Not on here though, but in another realm of understanding. All right.
Too bright, too dark. Ish. All right, whatever. It'll be fine. Hey, friends.
Hello. All right. I think I got it.
All right, my sports bra showing, but that's just gonna have to be life today.
All good. All is A-okay. This is the best it's gonna get. Awesome! I have done the cropping! Took me a while. I understand how OBS works. That's great. Yeah, so right now we're just recapping the game. We're recapping the game, yeah. It looked like it was going to be another Canucks 5-1 loss, and then it turned out to not be another Canucks 5-1 loss. what were your thoughts, Erica, about how the Kraken's performance and maybe the Canucks performance, if you so choose to?
Well, you know, the I wanted this win badly. I mean, I just have to say it. I wanted this win extremely badly for Seattle for a number of reasons. First, being that the first time we played the Canucks, we gave them their first win of the season. I thought that they got really physical with us, and I didn't think the boys handled it very well. The second being that this is the first of 3 consecutive Pacific Division rivals. And if we want to be a team that's going to be taken seriously with our record and where we stand right now in the division, in the league, we have to win these types of games. So it was great that we got the first goal, the early goal. We had some punch back, but you know, ultimately I really wanted this one, so I'm a little bummed right now.
Yeah, that is understandable. I mean, I love having games you think you win and then you don't.
Yeah.
Have had plenty of those. Yeah. Certainly, like you said before, the Canucks got their first win of the regular season against you guys earlier this year, which also was not a pretty game. That was 5-4, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was 5-4.
That's correct.
So we squeaked one out, and that was how we decided to come into the W column in the NHL for this season. Not pretty, but we did it, which I feel like could be the motto of the Canucks this year. Yeah, I really thought, as a Canucks fan who has watched them over the past few months, I was accepting lower in the standings. I was accepting just, this is not going to be good. This is not going to go well for us. And then it kind of did. No offense, I know Kraken fans. Apologize. You guys are new to the league, but it still hurts when you lose. It still hurts. It's never fun. Yeah. I just wanted to get ask a couple questions about the Kraken specifically. What are your thoughts on the Beniers for Calder talk? Because I've heard if either of you want to chime in for that, because I know we almost injured him, so apologies for that. That was Luke Shen. We let him on the ice, and it should come with a warning sometimes. But yeah, I told my friend who was not watching the game, I told him, I was like, oh yeah, well, we almost injured Beniers, Shen almost injured Beniers, and then he's just like, oh, how hard did he hit him? And I was like, no, he didn't hit him. It was a puck. But yes, thoughts on kind of how the Kraken have they're making a name for themselves with this younger sort of aspect of this team as well.
Well, I mean, it can't go understated how Matty Beniers has helped the Seattle Kraken team play the way that they want to play for a long time in the beginning of the season, when we still weren't really committing, in my opinion, to the way that we wanted to play ice hockey. Matty Beniers was that difference, and he continues to be. So yeah, if Matty Beniers going down, it does not go well. Did not compute. Being able to have a young talent like that, obviously, I talk about the Calder odds and stuff like that on the podcast all of the time. And that's exciting, right? That makes people talk about Seattle, even outside of people like me who watch the games. But more importantly, in my opinion, I think that he plays the way that Seattle wants to play, and he's helping bridge the gap between what we were last season and who this team will be in the future. He's doing that right now. He's one of those players that's doing that right now. He fits in, he plugs into a lot of different areas. Even when he's not scoring, he does a lot of things that Seattle needs to do. He's one of our more consistent players. So, I mean, I could go on for literal days speaking about Matty Beniers, but he's extremely important. Of course, it's exciting knowing that he's up for Calder, but again, I think he gives us so much more than that. And, you know, my hope is that he continues to grow, and he has so far, not just, you know, throughout the course of the season, but you see that he works on things, you know, essentially from game to game. And so I think that bodes well on to him having even a higher ceiling than what we see this season.
Yeah. He's definitely going to be a player to watch for the franchise over the few years, and definitely going to be a pain if the Canucks are going to try and rebuild and get into a playoff spot in this division with the Kraken, also and Andre Burakovsky. He's been really great pickup as a UFA. Martin Jones as your goalie, considering the season he had last year in Philadelphia. Who would have seen that? Who would have seen this working out, considering everything that happened with Drieger and like being out for the season. And then yeah, I kind of relate to the whole Matty Beniers going down, as, you know, because he's a push for many different aspects of the team. Right, offensively, defensively. That's kind of like what Pettersson was for us, and he was just not here for the last week. He got the cold flu that's been going around Vancouver for or probably everywhere, but I know Vancouver it's here because almost everyone I know is sick, so, or has been sick recently. So yeah, that was not good. I'm so sad that it doesn't count as a 6th point, because then he would have had the first Canucks 6-point game since Marcus Naslund in, I think, February of 2003. And I don't know. I was 2 months old when that happened, so that's it's been a while since that happened, considering I'm a functioning human now, kind of. Yeah, all right. So, yeah, pretty much it looked like the Kraken had come to town, but eventually the Canucks caught up to them. Eventually the Canucks woke up. This was a trend last year, I noticed. They weren't really giving it their all in the beginning of the game, and then there was a trend at the beginning of this year when they would give up near the end of the game. Kind of also almost happened in the Kraken home opener, or the Kraken opener when we actually won our game, but yeah. Then I was like, Kuzmenko scored, and then when Sprong scored to make it 5-3, I was really just, I was shocked, but also not shocked, but also a little shocked. Because, 1, not shocked because Tyler Myers giveaway. 2, not shocked because the Canucks blew a kind of chance at getting the game back. But, it was so soon, too, but it was almost predictable in the way that the form of the Canucks goes. I think our last 6 wins are overtime wins, and I know the Kraken are no strangers to high-scoring games either. You know, that whole 9-8 game that one night, that was...
Yeah, 17 goals, wild. 17 goals overall, Chanel. What?
Goals. That doesn't sound like it should be... I feel bad for the goalies in that game. That sounds like they should...
I literally just, shivered. Blah.
They should file a complaint with, the NHL Players Association. Just be like, hey... hey, this is inhumane working conditions. Just because they're a union, aren't they? I don't know what unions do. Anyway. Alright, yeah. And then Besser with the tip-in. That's why I'm wearing my Besser jersey. 1, because I couldn't find my Pettersson jersey. And 2, Besser scored. And when Besser scores, I get to wear the jersey. That's my role. Or I want him to score, or want him to not get traded, because I also... wore it a couple weeks ago when that was coming out. And then Pettersson ties it, and I just want to know, what were your thoughts in that moment when Pettersson ties it with 1:20 to go, and it's his 5th point of the game?
We've been encouraged not to swear on the Locked On show, so
oh my gosh.
I'm not sure there's much I can say that doesn't fit into that. I mean, it's just, there's a saying on Kraken Twitter, and on the podcast, I call it Kraken crap. Let's just put it that way.
Mhm.
And that's what it is. I mean, if you look at the opportunities that we gave up in this game, I speak probably ad nauseum for some people about defense. And I think that the Seattle Kraken have gotten better in so many areas. And in my opinion, defense is last on that list. Now they've improved somewhat, but that's more so because they're playing a team defense. But we as a team get burned when we lose that. And unfortunately, I do think that we don't have enough defenders that are light of foot, and we get burned a lot. Our goaltenders get burnt a lot backdoor, and it just hurts my little heart because I think Grubauer, he had an injury, so it's tough to say, but let's just talk about Martin Jones in this game. Even if you go to earlier in the game, before it got all wild and crazy with goals, when we saw Vancouver be able to tie it up, it is because it was a partial breakaway on the rush, and Martin Jones can only do so much. You either come out of the crease and you try to cut down the angle, but then you leave backdoor exposed. And I mean, it's just rinse and repeat. And so for me, those are the things that get extremely frustrating. And that's why it's Kraken crap, because it's predictable. It's like predictable what the breakdowns are going to be. And that's going to be difficult if, again, we want to defend the record that we have now, especially at this point in the season, comparative to what we did all of last year, let alone at this point last year. These are the things that have to be different. And in my opinion, these are things that are fixable. These are habits that are fixable. And so to see a game like this just be a continuation of Kraken crap, as I say, is extremely frustrating. Again, I wanted this one so bad. We've never won against Vancouver as a franchise. This was an important time, and more importantly, showing that we can eliminate Kraken crap is extremely important at this time in the season. We just didn't do it. We didn't do it, Chanel. I'm ticked. I'm really ticked off.
Yeah. I understand that the defense not kind of being like kind of leaving your goalie out to dry. That has leaving your goalie out to dry has been a trend as well for Vancouver hockey for years. So I understand the problems in that aspect. I understand the whole issues with defense, considering I don't know how much our defense costs, but it is too much for what we get sometimes. And yeah, I think our defensive choices are interesting for the Canucks, especially. But I know Kraken also, there was a couple moments where I was like, okay, that's fun. That looks like us. That looks like you just, like, I feel like defensive issues are just, it's a Pacific Northwest thing, apparently, I guess. Or, I mean, I guess we could add Edmonton in there, because sometimes they have problems, but we don't like to talk about Edmonton here, because, why? That was a joke. Sorry, sorry, game over, Edmonton. But yeah, high-scoring game. I'm just gonna take a quick second right now. Like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, down below. Yeah, if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, of course, rate and review. You can find me on Real Kaja Mae on Instagram. Twitter, oh my gosh. Who uses Instagram when you can use an app that is almost dead? You can find Chanel at Chanel37 and Erica at elindsay08. All right. I just want to, we kind of touched on this already. If you guys have any questions in the chat, I have questions in the chat for either of our guests. Questions, comments, about the Kraken in general. Go ahead. You guys are part of this too. And yeah, I have a specific question. We're going to touch a bit on the Kraken this season and how it compares to last season and stuff like that. Some people in the chat would like to hear Chanel's and Erica's thoughts on Sprong's game so far this season. Chanel, would you like to?
I think he's obviously having a great season, and it's really nice to watch him shine a little bit. Like I knew his name when we got him. I was like, okay, this is an interesting pickup, and he made a lot of really important moves, I think, over the summer, which is obviously has helped us. I think a lot of the vibes have changed. I was telling Erica, I was like, I really think we need to go Sage Climate Pledge Arena before the season starts because the vibes are off. And yeah, I think he just slots like really well with all the guys he's surrounded by, and I think the Beniers effect is definitely benefiting him as well. I mean, like the team just seems a little bit tighter than they were last year. I think last year is more of a trauma bonding situation where they all, ended up in this place whether they wanted to or not. But now some of them had a bit more of a choice to be here, and I think that that's really showing true this year. Through the trials and tribulations, and sort of what Erica was saying earlier, like the Kraken crap situation is very real. I feel like I get flashbacks to last season every time we give up a lead or every time, we go down a couple goals and I just, start to shake a little bit. I'm like, oh, can we make it? Can we do it? And I think the worst part is when we start off really well and then we lose it in the middle of everything. And then, you kind of have to make that choice of like, are we going to do the hard thing and try to climb back, or are we just going to see what happens? And I think a lot of the recent games, and I think we're in a weird spot because it's the holiday times. I've noticed across a lot of the games I've been watching lately, because I've been watching a couple teams this year. It just seems like an awkward time for a lot of people. And I think I was even just today thinking about my own family and how this is the first holiday in a couple of years that there'll be a lot of people at my house again. And so I think a lot of people will be traveling for the first time back home for the holiday. I just think there's a lot going on. But to answer your question, Sprong has sprung. Sprong has sprung. I hope he pops off in the spring for real. I think, all these conversations kind of might not mean anything if we don't make the playoffs this year, which would really, really mess things up for us mentally, I think, and emotionally. But yeah, we'll see what the rest of the season has for Sprong. But I'm excited for him, and I'm proud of him.
Yeah, and as far as me for Sprong, I think it's such an interesting, in a good way, storyline that he has, right? He was with us last season, and then he has to come through as a PTO and really fight for a spot. The fourth line has been an integral part of the Seattle Kraken success. I mentioned Maddie Beniers, but another piece of our game that quite honestly has been really consistent has been our fourth liners. Now, Coleman, we had to wish him farewell, but if you look at Ryan Donato, anyone who listens to Locked On Kraken knows I absolutely adore Ryan Donato. You look at what Sprong has been able to do, Morgan Geekie on that fourth line, they have been contributing, and they've been making it difficult, generally speaking, when we play other teams, which opens up things for the other lines. If you look at what the Seattle Kraken did, I mean, Jared McCann's having an amazing season, but last year we were looking at Jared McCann. We were expecting a lot from Schwartz and Eberle. Schwartz gets hurt, Eberle not contributing at the level that, we were hoping or expecting. I think Brandon Tanev has ebbed and flowed. He had a really important peak, him and Yanni Gourde, during our first winning streak, our 5-game winning streak, longest in franchise history, until our 7-game winning streak was amazing. But all of that to say, the fourth line and Sprong, when he's been drawn in the lineup and you've seen he's getting more time now consistently, he's been really great. I like that he has that grinder mentality. I've always, again, I love Ryan Donato, and part of the reason I like his game is because it is a grit and grind, or once, he gave the quote, piss and vinegar. Like he wants to see Seattle play with a little more piss and vinegar. And I think Daniel Sprong has a little bit of that. He's got something to prove, and he's been doing it so far. So those are my thoughts on Sprong and just the fourth line overall. I wish we would get a little bit more of that kind of like grinded out, gutsy energy. We are a very polite, blue collar team. I saw in the YouTube chat someone saying, I'll remix it, basically saying this is still a young team on Locked on Kraken. I say we're still teenagers. We play like teenagers. So I think that's very real. It's extremely frustrating at times because I think we're trying to be the mature teenagers, but sometimes we're not. Cracking crap pops up. But Daniel Sprong, I think, has been amazing. So I love that question. And again, just the fourth line for us has been really important.
Yeah. Certainly the youth is adding to how people underestimate the Kraken and stuff like that. The fourth line, it is interesting because you guys have like a scoring fourth line, and they're producing. It's kind of like last year we had like the Motto line with Tyler Mott and Juho Lammikko and Matthew Highmore, and then I know Lammikko's overseas now. Mott is in Ottawa. I think Highmore signed in St. Louis or something, but yeah, I just remember that era when people were talking about how important a scoring fourth line is, and then seeing, Seattle tonight, Seattle just play in general with, Sprong and Donato, obviously. And then comparing it to us, who we have a rotating group of like players we brought up from the AHL, or actually no, our fourth line center is Nils Åman, who we signed from Sweden this offseason, which was a huge meme because Patrick Alvin, of course, signs Swedish players, but like he's been pretty good for us. He, I believe, has not missed a game so far this season, so not a lot of players can say that. Yeah, but I guess we have 3 scoring lines because our highest offensive line was the third line tonight because Elias Pettersson as a third line center does not sound right at all. But that's what happened. Yeah, it's certainly interesting. I remember I went to 2 Kraken games last year, but in Vancouver, obviously, but I went to 2 Kraken games last year, and I remember sitting there, and we were losing 2-1 after the first, because Mark Giordano scored. It was in February, so before he was traded, Mark Giordano scored, and it was 2-1, and I was like, I remember thinking, how are we losing to the Kraken at that point in time? I'm sorry, it hurts, I know, I mean, I hear now, how are we losing to the Canucks sometimes, so, but not very often. Yeah, and now, like, this game, I was fully expecting another 5-1 loss for the Canucks. I was fully expecting to be like, oh, we're losing to the Kraken. It's okay, because it's the Kraken. They're good now. It's this kind of, I feel like they were definitely underappreciated last season coming out, and because the thing about Vegas is everyone wanted to play in Vegas, and people compare them to the Vegas expansion team and the Vegas expansion run and everything. They go to the freaking Stanley Cup finals. That's not a big deal or anything. Go Capitals. Anyway, yeah, so, this whole, like, the aura of successfulness or whatever, because at that point, the Golden Knights had not missed the playoffs in franchise history, which was, like, 5 years long, but who cares? Whereas the Kraken, everyone expected that immediately out of the gate, right out of them in 2021, and it was just, like, they don't have that same energy, because, like, everyone wants to go to Vegas. Seattle rains a lot. I don't know. I think it does. I've been once, but I'm assuming it's similar to here. But yeah, so it's kind of like the difference in attitude heading into, like Chanel saying, trauma bonding, and then now this team, people actually wanted to come and sign there, which we've had a problem with that too. I understand, except we didn't take Andrei Kuzmenko to Joey's, but yeah, it's certainly a good turnaround for the Kraken, I'd say, this year. They're an exciting team to watch. They'll be an exciting team for the next few years to watch, as, they also have Shane Wright as well. who's getting some playing time with future Anaheim Duck Connor Bedard. I don't know. That's what I'm hoping he go. I actually no. I probably shouldn't hope that he goes because that puts more pressure on all of us. So, yeah. All right. Any other thoughts about generally the Kraken, how they kind of have evolved? It's like a Pokemon evolution this year with them.
I mean, yeah, I kind of went on a little bit of a rant yesterday on the podcast because there was this article that was like, but better how though? Like, how is Seattle better? And I was like, in every way, we are so much better than last year. I mean, we really are. We have really focused a little bit more on our checking game. When we focus on that team style defense and really making things difficult and winning possession of the puck, I think that's when we play our best. Getting out to an early lead is extremely important for us. The Kraken crap rears its ugly head because last year, we would have to score 5, 6, 7 goals just to kind of keep up with the other team. The next evolution for me is being able to maintain a lead. I mean, we had a 2-goal lead at some point in this game in the third period and then we had to go to a shootout. So those are the frustrating things. But this is a much better team. I take absolutely no offense when you're like, how are we losing to Seattle last season? That's a last year thing. That's an inaugural season thing. It can't be a thing this year. Like that should not be a thing. People should respect us. And I talked about that on today's podcast. Like losing games like this hurts because it puts a chink in the chain. It really ruins the integrity that this team has worked so hard to build, especially given the way that we played last year. And, a lot of the narratives outside of, in my opinion, the Seattle Kraken fan base are about Vegas and comparing us to Vegas. And I think we get that. That makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. Ron Francis, though, I think did a great job of reestablishing what the standard was going to be for Seattle. Now, whether people chose to listen to him or not is another thing, but I think Kraken fans know that we're doing something different than Vegas and that Vegas isn't the standard for us because Vegas, yeah, sure, they made it to the final the first year and they made it to the playoffs their first handful of seasons, but that wasn't sustainable as we've seen. And so Seattle's really trying to build sustainability. So again, I mean, it's tough to say because there are a lot of good things. And maybe if you catch me on a night where we win against Vancouver, I focus a little bit more on those, but it stings. It stings because these are the things, and these are the things that the things that happen in this game are things that are going to hold us back from being the team that we can be. And for, showing that we're not a fluke, this isn't a flash in the pan team. This is a team that can really go far, and a team that as of right now is in playoff position for good reason. But we're not going to keep that if we can't win tight games. We're not going to keep that if we don't win against division rivals. We're not going to freaking keep that if we can't beat Vancouver. So that's just kind of ticking me off right now.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I like what you said about sustainability. I feel like Seattle's already running circles around Vegas because climate pledge and all that, and also our jersey, your guys' jerseys are cooler than theirs anyway. I love the color scheme. Just saying that, way cooler. And your logo's way better anyway too, because who likes knights? That's weird. All right. Okay. Just another reminder: like, comment, subscribe, rate, review if you're listening to a podcast on a podcast platform. Subscribe down below to SDPN. I'm at Real Kaja Mae on Twitter. I'm with Chanel37 of Hockey Tomorrow, which is new and up and coming, and we will be discussing that in this last little segment here, as well as Erica Ayala. I pronounced that right? Awesome. At elindsay08 on Twitter. So follow, both these wonderful people. And yes, Erica is also the founder of Black Rosie Media, which is an organization that promotes and supports Black women and BIPOC creators in sports media. They did great work. Host of Locked on Kraken. She's already mentioned, Kraken crap and stuff like that. The phrase, as well as being a Premier Hockey Federation and a National Women's Soccer League broadcaster. Yes, also, Chanel shout out worked with the Kraken in their inaugural season. Kind of fluke stuff. Whatever happened last year, you just put it in the past. But she was their intersectionality consultant, which I think is quite amazing. Yeah, so I am going to hand this little third section of the show off to you guys. I'm going to start. Chanel, what was it like working with the Kraken as their intersectionality consultant, as well as what's your new work with Hockey Tomorrow? I understand there's a talk show coming with my personal favorite website, HockeyDB, coming in the new year. I saw that. Yeah, so if you'd like to discuss what you're working on, go ahead.
Yeah, of course. Working with the Kraken during their inaugural season and during their pre-inaugural season was a whirlwind. It was a very interesting time because while things were going on positively internally, we were struggling on the ice, and that was a very difficult situation to be in because our vibes and our confidence in each other and the team that we knew we could be. It was difficult, but it was so exciting to be a part of the team and just this history that we now made. And I do hope that if there is a documentary, which I feel like there has to be a documentary made about the situation, that Erica and I are both in it, because I feel like a lot of what went on last year and the last 2 years was built by people like Erica and myself. And I was surrounded by a lot of amazing BIPOC people that were behind the scenes, just absolutely doing the best that we could with the resources that we had. And I think that internally we set up a really great path to go forward sustainably inside. And I hope that, a lot of these little projects that I've had my hands on during that time, that their history lives on as well, but that remains to be seen. And the other day I was like kind of getting a little sad about that, or nostalgic, because a couple months ago was like the anniversary of the last time I was there. And I was just looking through my photos and I was like, oh, like I wish, like there's a way to commemorate my time there. And then I realized that my boss at the time, Becca Elliott, she signed my name on the beam that is inside the arena. So I will, as long as that roof stays where it's supposed to be, that, that my name is in there forever, which is more special than anything that I've done externally for them. And that's kind of hard to explain, but it means a lot. So yeah, I just started with Hockey of Tomorrow. We are going to be a multimedia platform. We're launching in February. I'm really excited about us. Because of our mission, we're doing something a little bit different that shouldn't really be different. We care about what's going on in society from a hockey perspective. And hopefully that becomes more normalized as time goes on. But I think at this point, we don't really have a choice to ignore certain things. And while this sounds like a very serious description of what's to come, we are going to just put out a lot of positivity as well. I think that that's super important to focus on when there does seem to be something terrible happening every week in this sport, in this landscape right now. We hope to be a safe place for everyone. We put that in quotes because we are not the NHL. But yeah, it's going to be really exciting, and I hope we've started to collect a pool of people from our online, citing and searching, and I'm really excited to see what's to come. So that's what's going on for me right now.
Awesome. That is amazing. It'll be great. It'll be great to see. I believe it's at Hockey Tomorrow on Twitter as well, right? Okay, I was like, I'm pretty sure I got the down, but yeah. Erica, would you like to maybe speak a little bit? I know you mentioned your podcast earlier, but speak a bit about what Locked On Kraken is like, as well as what it has been working or kind of creating Black Rosie Media, as well as kind of what's going on in the world of the PHF right now.
Yeah, sure. Well, first, Chanel is awesome. So if you're not already following her, you should definitely do that. I absolutely adore her as a human being, and we keep each other sane, especially through the inaugural season. And I love what Chanel does in hockey, and I think that we're in lockstep in so many different ways there. And so just echo everything that she said. Can't wait for what she will be doing, and what we can expect from her in her new role. As far as Locked On Kraken, yeah, I've mentioned it a few times, recognize some people in the chat. And I mean, we talk about Seattle. I am the type of host, as you probably picked up, I like to keep it pretty real. So if you catch me after a loss like today, I'm going to tell you what I didn't like about it, what went wrong. And I can also be enthusiastic about people other than Matty Beniers and Ryan Donato, but about the team overall. You got to take the good with the bad. And I think that's a part of, Locked On Kraken is definitely a community for fans. So we can have fun and we can really enjoy being Seattle Kraken fans. But as someone who is also a journalist, I think it's also important to talk about some of the things that you don't like so much as a fan, or that are things that we really have to address as a team. And defense continues to be one of those things in my book. So that's what you can get from Locked On Kraken. I also try to, Chanel's been on the show a few times. We have Allison Lucan, who's been on the show, Everett Fitzhugh, JT Brown have been some of the guests. Also Sharon Nyree Williams, who there's this amazing video that the Seattle Kraken put out right before the expansion draft, and she narrated that, and she's still narrating some of the videos for the Community Heroes Awards that Seattle puts together. So all of those creators, to Chanel's earlier point, are people that are in hockey that we don't always visibly see in hockey. DJ Trunks is another example. He also DJs for the Seattle Storm. He's DJ'd for the Mariners, the Seahawks. And so those are voices that I like to amplify, whether they're on as guests or we're talking about their work. So you can expect that on Locked On Kraken, which goes into Black Rosie Media. Black Rosie Media was created, and although I'm in the hockey space, I'm also in the soccer space, as it was mentioned. I've done a lot of work in women's basketball and internationally in all of those sports. And what I see and what I know to be true is that not only do we not see a lot of Black, or as I say, melanated, because you can be of a darker hue and not only identify as Black. So I think that's important to say. But Black and melanated people, or BIPOC people, are starting to, in greater numbers than what I saw when I started in sports media, that we're in these spaces. But once again, we're not always noticed. Our work isn't always amplified. Our work is sometimes straight up co-opted. And so Black Rosie Media is a space where we want to amplify those voices and the people that are already in the space, from photographers. Amanda Kane is the first full-time Black team photographer in the NHL, and I got to work with her doing some work in the WNBA and the NWSL, just as an example. So we want to highlight those stories and also provide opportunities for some of those creators wherever they are in their career. Amanda Kane is like a whole NHL photographer and still needed, or still, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she's, even at that level, it's still was difficult for her to navigate as a professional photographer in other spaces. And so we have to help each other out. And so in a nutshell, that's what Black Rosie Media is all about. And we have some exciting things that we have planned in the next handful of years. And I can't wait to share some of those soon. At the top of the year, we'll talk a little bit more about them, but that's what's going on there. And as far as the Premier Hockey Federation, the PHF, which is the Women's Hockey League, I am the longest tenured broadcaster of that league. I just was on my 90th broadcast, I guess last weekend before the holiday break. And I'm very proud of that. I've stuck it out. I've gotten a lot better as a broadcaster in a lot of ways. You know, Chanel and I were messaging earlier that, you know, part of that is being able to listen to more men's hockey and hear what I like and hear what I don't like, or things that, you know, finding a balance. Thank you. So I think, you know, hockey is something that I didn't grow up watching. It's not something that I ever thought I'd really get into, but I have found a community in hockey, and there are a lot of things about hockey that still need to change. And I'm actively working to change those things, not just for my own personal curated experience, but for other people's experiences. But I would be, but the truth, I should say, my truth is that hockey is how I got into sports media. And Black women in particular are who got me into hockey. And now I sit here and, you know, I always feel kind of weird saying some of this stuff because I don't want to be like braggadocious, but I will put it this way. I'm extremely proud that I now have covered, like I said, multiple sports at the international level, including going to my first ever Winter Olympics, covering Maddie Veneers and Sarah Nurse at those tournaments in particular. You know, I've been able to really occupy a space that not a lot of people who look like me or sound like me or have my background have been able to occupy. And that is because I have been given an opportunity to fall in love with hockey and have been sustained by just the amazing positive energy of people like Chanel, people like, I mean, I'm wearing my Seattle Kraken Black Girl Hockey Club hat, and those spaces are extremely important. So we should support those spaces. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you both. It is certainly, yeah, hockey is certainly a sport that is not kind of welcoming to a lot of people, and it's concerning. You see it in a lot of other sports where there is like a significant difference, but hockey is like the one that kind of got away and is seen as, you know, having all these issues, which it does have all these issues. It does 100% still have all these issues. There's still horrific things going on in this sport, but it is important to have people like the both of you, Chanel and Erica, to kind of move this sport and sports media and communities kind of in a further direction and get more in the spotlight a bit, because you guys deserve it better than some of the old white guys that talk hockey, honestly. I'm sick of a couple of them, honestly, but yes, thank you both for the work that you do. You're both amazing. Go follow them on Twitter and, you know, other platforms. Check out what they're doing. Erica, I do have a question. A couple questions about the PHF. What is your impression of PHF teams? I know you mentioned about being a broadcaster and watching like men's hockey and seeing what you like, what you don't. What's your impression of having some of the teams having like the partner teams like the Bruins and Pride, in Boston, or the Minnesota Wild and Whitecaps? Also, Whitecaps gets me really confused with the MLS team we have in Vancouver. So anytime I see somebody talk about Whitecaps on the Twitter timeline, I'm like, okay, which one is it this time? But yes.
Yeah, so I think that is something that so just really quick, before the league was called the Premier Hockey Federation, it was called the National Women's Hockey League, NWHL. And so there were 4 original teams. We have a founding 4, as I like to say. And so that's the Boston team that you mentioned, the Buffalo Beauts, the Connecticut Whale, and at the time there were the New York Riveters. And I think it made a lot of sense early on, and I think it still makes a lot of sense if you're talking hockey in certain markets. A lot of people's reference point is the National Hockey League. That being said, throughout the years, and now we have 7 teams. So we've expanded to Minnesota, as you mentioned, Toronto, who am I missing? Montreal. Yeah, thank you. And so I think that what we've seen is that is still a model to some extent. So the Boston Pride, their home ice is the practice facility of the Bruins, and they have a pretty good relationship with Warrior hockey overall. You saw that the Whitecaps, they just moved to an arena that they could kind of brand a little bit more of their own. So they moved away from Tria Rink, which was the home or the practice facility of the Minnesota Wild. So I think we've seen the relationships evolve and change over time. There was a time where the Pagulas owned the Buffalo Beauts, and then that went away because women's hockey. I mean, if you follow women's hockey, some of you get it. That could be a whole podcast in and of itself. But I think that what I like about where the relationships stand right now is that they are, I think, substantial without having to make the women's hockey teams feel like an immediate extension of whatever the NHL team is, because in a lot of ways they aren't and never really have been, especially thinking of the financial resources and where they come from. So I like when there's synergy, but also each team is allowed to be unique and have its own way of kind of repping its city. So that's my take.
Yeah, it's kind of like having a partnership instead of having like kind of parentalship. I don't know if that's the right kind of
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that just made me think of what you were saying, how kind of like it's a separate entity but being supported.
Yes.
It kind of reminds me of how there's this whole now push for a Canadian professional women's soccer league.
Right.
And now like the Whitecaps are taking a lot of responsibility in it, like the Vancouver Whitecaps are, and I know they got Steph LeBay in it to help facilitate the creation of it and stuff like that, but it still feels like it's going to be under the Whitecaps somehow, like the same level that their VWFC2 team is. It just kind of feels like they're below essentially that, whereas I feel like the PHF and their teams, they do a great job at kind of distinctly representing. I've seen this with like what I've seen of the NWSL too. They kind of have a distinct identity, and in the WNBA as well, it's kind of like they're different from the major teams that dominate that kind of, or dominate in quotations obviously, but if you're like in Arizona or something and you're talking about the Coyotes dominating sports, you're wrong. But yeah, it's certainly good to see them have like a separate identity, and with the PHF being supported by other teams, it gives like people an extra kind of route to viewing them, especially with, I remember last year there was like, I remember the Bruins went into one game wearing Boston Pride jerseys or shirts or something like that. It was something like that, but I remember seeing it last year, and I just thought that was a cool thing to kind of include the team and show a partnership, kind of like how, like, it would be nice if Toronto did that, but MLSE doesn't apparently own the Six, but you know, it would be yes, they don't, because you know, they can wear Argos sweaters into the game, and that's a completely different sport, but forget the other Toronto teams, they don't exist. All right, I think that's a good note to end on. Thank you both for joining me tonight on Game Over Vancouver. It was lovely to have you both on. Just another remember, like, comment, subscribe to SDPN. Follow our host on Twitter. I believe it's been posted in the chat a few times, as well as just on our Twitter post. Yes, thank you both to Chanel and Erica for joining me. I have been Kaja Mae. The Vancouver Canucks 6-5 in a shootout. I was thinking of the score before the game, before like the last minute and a half of the game, wherein the Canucks were, I was about to say 5-4 Kraken too. Like, that's the bad part. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right. Yes, thank you both for joining me. And it's been a fun live show. Live show, let's remind everybody. Thank you, and good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.